The United States and China have just announced a major trade deal, potentially ending years of escalating tariffs and economic tensions between the world's two largest economies. After 2 days of high-stakes negotiations in Geneva, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Greer declared on Sunday, May 11th, 2025, that substantial progress had been made. But here's the twist: they've revealed almost no details about what's actually in the agreement. This sudden announcement comes after years of an intensifying trade war that saw tariffs reach astronomical levels: 145% on Chinese imports to the US and 125% on American goods entering China. These tariffs have effectively acted as a near-trade embargo, disrupting global supply chains and raising prices for consumers worldwide. So what do we actually know about this deal? According to U.S. officials, the primary goal is addressing America's massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit with China. President Trump, who's been actively following the negotiations, described the talks as very good and mentioned a total reset negotiated in what he called a friendly but constructive manner. The U.S. delegation, led by Treasury Secretary Bessent and Trade Representative Greer, met with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng in Switzerland. After the meetings, Bessent described the talks as productive, while Greer called them very constructive. Both confirmed they had briefed President Trump on the outcomes. But here's what makes this announcement particularly interesting. Despite the fanfare, no specific details about tariff reductions or concrete agreements were provided. Instead, Secretary Bessent promised a complete briefing would be held the next day, May 12th, when the administration would share more information about the trade deal. This calculated approach to information release suggests either a strategic rollout or the possibility that final details are still being ironed out. President Trump had previously hinted at potentially lowering tariffs on Chinese goods to 80%, but no confirmation of such a reduction was included in the initial announcement. The economic stakes couldn't be higher. The prolonged trade war has significantly disrupted global supply chains, with many companies forced to adjust their sourcing and manufacturing strategies to navigate the high tariffs. A reduction in these trade barriers could potentially alleviate some of these disruptions, offering relief to businesses and consumers who've been bearing the costs of higher prices. Markets reacted positively to the news, with both stock and commodity markets showing immediate gains after word of progress and the negotiations broke. Investors have long been concerned about the economic impact of the trade war, and any sign of de-escalation is welcome news for global markets. The timing of this deal is particularly significant against the backdrop of recent economic challenges. The U.S. economy contracted by 0.3% in early 2025, while China has been grappling with issues in its export-dependent sectors. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva recently emphasized that the ongoing trade uncertainty is really bad for business, and that everyone benefits when this uncertainty is lifted. Reactions to the announcement have varied widely. The U.S. government's response has been overwhelmingly positive, with Trump administration officials portraying the deal as a major breakthrough. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett even described the Chinese as very, very eager to engage in discussions and rebalance trade relations with the United States. Meanwhile, China has taken a more measured approach. The Chinese government didn't immediately issue an official confirmation of the trade deal. However, China's state news agency Xinhua published an editorial emphasizing the importance of mutual respect in negotiations and rejecting unilateralism, protectionism, and economic coercion. This cautious response from Beijing suggests that while progress may have been made, fundamental differences in perspective likely remain. Chinese officials have previously stated they would firmly reject any proposal that compromises their core interests, while state media has warned against negotiation tactics that undermine global principles of fairness and sovereignty. For everyday Americans and Chinese citizens, the implications of this deal could be significant. If it involves a reduction in tariffs, it could lead to lower prices for imported goods, potentially easing inflationary pressures in both countries. Businesses caught in the crossfire of trade tensions might see relief from the uncertainty that has plagued planning and investment decisions. Beyond the immediate economic effects, a trade deal between the United States and China could have broader geopolitical implications. The trade war has strained relations between these global powers, and an agreement to de-escalate tensions could be a positive step toward improving the overall relationship. The announcement has also caught the attention of international observers. The European Union, IMF, and other global entities have expressed hope that a resolution to the US-China trade conflict could boost worldwide economic growth. International businesses that rely on stable trade relations between these economic giants are watching developments closely. As we await more details about the specifics of this agreement, it's worth remembering that the history of US-China trade negotiations has seen both progress and setbacks. The Phase 1 trade agreement signed in January 2020 offered temporary relief, but ultimately fell short of addressing fundamental issues, particularly as the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted global trade patterns. Will this new deal truly represent a breakthrough in the relationship between the world's two largest economies, or will it prove to be another temporary fix? The answer may become clearer when U.S. officials provide their promised briefing with additional details. What do you think? Can a trade agreement between the U.S. and China restore stability to the global economy? Or are the underlying tensions too deep for a quick diplomatic fix? While we wait for more information, one thing is certain. The outcome of these negotiations will have far-reaching consequences, not just for the United States and China, but for the entire global economic system. The world will be watching closely as the full details of this potentially historic trade deal emerge.